Alright. So we watched the film 12 Angry Men, and so the young man who's 18 was getting pressed charges for a first-degree murder, is what we found out.
Yeah, killing his father.
Okay. And so there was the 12 men were all on the jury duty, and they took a vote first right away, and they all believed he was guilty besides one guy. And this was after what, a few minutes?
This was after they listened to the whole court case. They all pretty much developed their own opinion of what happened. Some of them, honestly, didn't really even listen to the court case and just came up with their own opinions based on their beliefs.
Yep, and after, especially just looking at what all the other people said. And the one guy who was innocent, they kept on questioning him of why he was the only one saying not guilty. And he's like, well, I don't want to kill a guy after 5 minutes after we haven't heard more details or really thought about killing a young kid if he's not guilty.
And he's an architect, and he thought about all the other different possibilities and other outcomes that could have happened during this, and all the other guys were just listening to what the prosecutor had to say, and the defendant really didn't help this kid out at all. He had no help from his defendant, and the architect was just trying to look at it from different views and from the kid's point of view and step into his shoes and see what it's like.
Yeah. Also, they were saying they went back to the kid's rough childhood, and there was a bunch of things. At age 15, the kid stole a car. Also, he had a really rough childhood. He was from an orphanage, actually, and his dad would always beat him, was throwing punches, was slapping him all the time. There's many cases of that happening. Then they were saying also a lot about the proof of how they got this case even. And one of the main what's it called? The
evidence?
Yeah, the evidence. One of the people who had evidence is
a witness?
A witness, yeah. So there's two main witnesses. There's the old man who's downstairs, and then the woman across the street.
Yeah. And they said that the old man walked 45 feet in 15 seconds. And then the architect put 15 feet or 12 feet out in the juror's room when they were deciding it, like if he was guilty or not guilty. And he walked the whole 45 feet, and it took him 41 seconds to walk all that.
Yes, and then the woman across the street, later on in the film, they were saying how the lady wore glasses, but no one wears glasses while they're sleeping. And he was comparing them to one of the guys on jury duty of how he has little prints right here on his nose, and how is she supposed to see? I think it was like at least 60 feet or 60 yards into a house over like a train station and see the kid actually stab his father.
The architect also says that there's no way the old man could have heard the boy yell out, "I'm going to kill you," because as the trains went by, the L train, they said that you couldn't hear anything. All you could hear was the rattling of the train tracks, the train, and the building. And then they also said that the architect said there's no way that the boy could have been seen by the old man because the old man was not fast enough, nor could he move barely at all to the door to actually see him running.
Also, with the L train, one of the main facts was that by the time the L train got to the thing, they would have had to heard the boy say, "I'm gonna kill you," 10 full seconds before it actually got to the house. So that's not very likely either. And for her just to wake up at that second and see this happen is very unlikely.
The architect also said that someone saying "I'll kill you" was saying that everyone uses those words, and that the architect pissed one of the other jurors off to the point where he said that "I'm going to kill you," and the architect said, "Well, how do you just say that, but justify saying that the little boy, or that the 18-year-old boy just did it out of pure rage and that he wanted to kill his dad?"
And okay, so now let's switch to the other side, Ryan. Now, for the people who thought he was guilty, was really
didn't give much reasons.
There's a
couple of them mostly just had prejudice reasons. Like the older guy next to the very old man, he just started saying they, those people, those type of people, they're bad people. Just talking about African Americans, saying how they're like the worst people, the type of people, and then everyone else started finally going against him and saying, and realizing that the only reason he said he's guilty was because he was black.
Also, some of the main evidence they were saying was about all the times that he came back at like 3 a.m. or left like close to midnight and all that, and how he went and said he watched a movie, but when he got home to his dad being dead with a knife in his chest, that he didn't remember any of the characters, didn't remember anything that happened. So then they started questioning any of the other guys, like, oh, what did you do yesterday? What did you do the day before? What did you do the day before that? And they were seeing like that it was really hard. And also that they could have thought the kid was just so stunned that he didn't know what to say.
The only guy, the architect kept asking the only guy that seemed intelligent that was for guilty. And he kept asking him, what did you do earlier in the week? What movies did you see? And then finally the guy who claimed that the boy was guilty finally broke under pressure and didn't remember the name of the movies or the actors in the movie. And he realized that the boy then, under emotional distress, could not remember the movies if your father was dead on the floor in front of you.
Also, what they tried to prove was that it wasn't possible to stab the knife downwards into a guy's chest that was 7 inches taller, and then they easily showed that. And with that knife, they were saying how could someone else come into the house with that knife and have that exact knife from like a store down the street. One of the guys on jury duty was actually pulled that knife out of his pocket because he said he bought it for $7 down the street at the convenience store, and was like, yeah, here's the knife, it's not that hard to get, or
also,
any of that.
There was another man with the jurors who lived in the slums as he grew up, and said that there was a lot of knife fighting, and that the only way they could hold a knife was pointing upwards. They said that if you owned a switchblade and you were raised using a switchblade, that you would not hold it down and stab down.
That he came back at like 3 a.m. or left like close to midnight and all that, and how he went and said he watched a movie, but when he got home to his dad being dead with a knife in his chest, that he didn't remember any of the characters, didn't remember anything that happened. So then they started questioning any of the other guys, like, oh, what did you do yesterday? What did you do the day before? What did you do the day before that? And they were seeing like that it was really hard. And also that they could have thought the kid was just so stunned that he didn't know what to say.
The only guy, the architect kept asking the only guy that seemed intelligent that was for guilty. And he kept asking him, what did you do earlier in the week? What movies did you see? And then finally the guy who claimed that the boy was guilty finally broke under pressure and didn't remember the name of the movies or the actors in the movie. And he realized that the boy then, under emotional distress, could not remember the movies if your father was dead on the floor in front of you.
Also, what they tried to prove was that it wasn't possible to stab the knife downwards into a guy's chest that was 7 inches taller, and then they easily showed that.
So, the architect was explaining what happened from different points of view, and as he was explaining that, he started swaying other people's opinions, and as he started giving other people's opinions towards like what he thinks, like the old man started to help him and explain how he saw that the old woman, or the woman, had glasses and she had marks, and that she wouldn't have worn them at night when she was sleeping. And then the architect also convinced the man that was just completely racist, saying that all black people do bad things and that they're just bad people. And then after he convinced him, he finally realized that it was as plain as day that he was innocent. He just didn't want to admit it.
And that's when it went from 6-6. Then it went to 9-3. 9 thought he was innocent. Then 3 thought he was still guilty. Then finally, after that, a few more facts were delivered. One main one, such as they're like, how can you, if it's not 100% true, how are you just gonna kill a guy? You need to know like 100% true that he did this, because then you're just killing an innocent dude. That it's not possible to happen. After they said that, that's when it really turned a lot of the guys' heads. There's still the 3 guys who thought he was guilty. That really changed their view on it, and them 2 guys went to the other side and thought he was innocent finally. There
was one guy who just kept changing his mind and didn't really have an opinion. He just said, oh, well, if everyone else is going to be not guilty now, then I'm just going to switch to not guilty. And then another juror got up and asked him, how do you live with yourself? How do you just go with what everyone else is doing? You have a man's life in your hands, and you're not going to think about it on your own. You're going to go along with everyone else. And then there was another guy who was a businessman or a salesman, and he just kept changing back and forth from guilty, not guilty. He just didn't have a real reason. He just kept switching back and forth.
And then there was that one final guy left. And really took some thought, really got in the head of just, if it's not 100% true, it's not possible. He got that in his head a few more times. And then he freaked out when he finally said, fine, he's not guilty. And that's when it was 12-0. The first time it was ever 12-0. And that's what made, that's how they...
That's when this man, when it was 11 not guilty and 1 guilty, the man got up, and everyone else that was saying not guilty was just staring at him, like waiting for his explanation of why he's guilty. And this man just kept saying, well, it's proof, it's obvious evidence that the woman saw it and that the man heard it. But then the architect obviously had clear information that showed that the man couldn't have heard it and that the woman could not have seen it. And then the man who was convicting the boy, saying that he was guilty, he finally realized that he was just wrong. And then after he had ripped up the picture of himself and his son, he started crying and realized his mistake throughout the whole trial.
And that's how the film ended, and he was ruled as not guilty.